Hey everybody, I'm Shane.
I'm Jordan with PDQ.com.
All right, listen, we've heard you. Everybody's saying, please, I want to be able to start a deployment again that failed, but I want to pick up from the failed step. And this has been a fairly requested feature. We did add that, but we added some extra spice to it, and we'll talk about that. That is the primary update or feature that we've added to PDQ Deploy version 16. We're running in the beta 2 right now, fully expecting within a week to have the release version of 16 out. But if you want to follow along, you'll need to have the beta 2. Throw it on a test machine if you can. How do we find out what's new?
If you just come to the homepage here, there's a what's new in this version.
How do you go to that homepage?
Top link, welcome to PDQ Deploy.
Okay.
And then click on what's new in this version. And it gives you, the beta 1 will have the features that we added, beta 2 will have kind of some of the things we fixed between the betas.
Correct. And then when we release, these will all be kind of compiled under one. This is the release for 16. But as you can see, basically, it's not just redeploy from a failed step. The extra spice we're talking about is you can actually start a deployment from any step.
Yeah.
And there's some different use cases that are involved, and we'll kind of cover some of those. But the real takeaway is starting from a failed step. So we've got Jordan that has set up. You've got some deployments that have already failed for the sake of time, and you're going to show us kind of what to expect when you're starting from a deployment or from a computer, right?
Well, deployments that fail is my specialty. So this one I have here where it's just set to randomly fail based on step.
Okay, so this is kind of a fake package that you just said fail at different steps. So why were you showing this one?
I'm just trying to show that if you have multiple deployments with more than one failure, if you come in and do the redeploy from failed
more than one failure, each computers may have failed at a different step.
More than one computer failed at different steps. So if you come in, you right-click on the deployment and go to redeploy from failed step. It'll automatically pick up for each step where it failed without you having to go through and find it.
Hey,
so
Jordan.
It does populate that.
How long did it take you to write a thing that would just randomly fail, man? It was like minutes, or did it take you a while?
I told you, this is my wheelhouse. It was maybe 5 minutes.
This was the
one
easiest
thing
prep.
Jordan doesn't have to try to do is fail a deployment. He has to.
Well, that was easier than I thought.
That's nature.
And I knew it was going to be easy.
I was actually trying to do something different.
That's actually now classified as instinct for him. Trying to unlearn that has been the challenge for us here at PDQ. All right, so you've got different targets that had failed. One failed at step 1, others failed at step 3. Now, what happens if you add a computer here? Because you can add a computer that was not part of that other deployment. Where will that start?
It will automatically start on step 1. I would add one, but this is actually every computer for the environment, so there's nothing to add.
All right. So now you didn't make a change to this. If you deploy this again, it's going to just kind of fail randomly. That's how this package is.
Yes.
So the purpose here is to show you these different. Go ahead and do that highlight and just circle those.
Circle all of them? Or?
It's
the highlight
Windows key.
Those steps.
Yeah.
That's a really bad.
It's just basically to show you this is where they will start. Now,
So Jordan went to the same place for art as I did.
the three of us should get together and just make the most horrific refrigerator paintings ever.
All of my art class time was spent trying to force me to use my right hand.
Are you a southpaw?
Yes.
Now, if you notice, there's a start deployment. Go ahead and circle that up there from that label. You can change this. So if you have specified this deployment to start all of the targets from like step 2, it would show step 2, but here it varies because some will start at step 4, some will start at step 1. You can change this. Go ahead and clear that circle.
I'm going to clear this.
You can. There it is. Okay, let me go ahead and click that. So you can specify the step. Now I want to. This is not hard coded. It's not just spin the wheel. That's what he named the first step.
I think
poorly at that point. We don't actually have to spin the wheel.
I changed this yesterday.
Something that's bad. a bad concept in deployment is just spin the wheel.
It's random failure. It was theme specific.
All right. So you have selected. Notice the blue there. You've done a multi-select for these first several targets. If you click that varies and say start from step 2. Go ahead.
Pretty sure the varies will do the entire package.
Oh, it will. Okay. So the varies that start deployment from will change everything. Thank you. this means that if you do change that, you've lost that rerun from failed step. The only way to get that back is to hit cancel if you really want to rerun from the failed step and start it over.
We'll go to, right,
What are you doing?
Edit. Let me just go into a different.
Well, yeah, but that's not sent.
Oh, so this instead.
Okay,
of
so you
going
can use
to,
the edit or the context menu or the right-click menu. So here, once again, we did redeploy from the failed step. So let's. This is still going to fail because it's built that way. So let's go ahead and go to another one that you've got. So let's show the one that fails because of that misspelling.
Okay, let's see. I believe that is that one.
So go ahead and open that up. So or do you want to hit deploy?
We'll just
And then have it fail.
Get it deployed now.
Okay, so he's going to deploy, and this is going to fail. This is a very popular use case where you realize, oh, like step 3 or something is, I need to modify that. But the first 2 steps have run. So you don't want to run those again necessarily.
Yep. So the step we have here, I've added stop dash process.
All right, so you misspelled the commandlet of stop process and did process, and it's going to fail.
Let's see if it's.
Go ahead and just minute
Just
that.
minimize it, yeah.
Yep, there it is. So it failed on step 3.
Step 3. So if we come in here and we just fix the spelling there. You can come in and do a redeploy from failed step.
Okay.
It'll go from 3.
It's going to pick it up from step 3, so it will not have to run steps 1 and 2 again.
One thing to note is if you decide you don't need that step, in this case we don't really need to stop edge to install 7-zip. If you delete the step, just whatever the step is below it will become step 3. So it
Go
will
ahead and
start
open it.
from-
I don't want this to be just academic. Open it
Okay.
up. I want to call this out. All right, so you decide we failed on step 3 because of misspelling. If Jordan decided, oh, you know what? I don't even need this. I don't need this package here or this step here at all, and he deletes that step 3 where it failed, saves it. When he does a redeploy from failed step, it's going to start from step 3. This is really important if you rearrange all of your steps after a failure. You may not get the results you're expecting.
Yeah,
So
this
just
one is-
keep that in mind. All we're doing is saying we know this stopped and failed at step 3.
Yes, and then step 3 became the uninstall the 64-bit.
Correct. So just calling that out. Now, let's talk about the options where there's an option on how to handle a failure at the step level where maybe there's a failure, but you say, even if this step fails, I want you to continue. Go ahead and show that one.
All right, so in this one we have 3 different.
We have what looks like one is disabled. Okay, so we have 3 steps, right?
Yep. So if you come to the options of the step, and there you can see error mode.
Now the default error mode. Go ahead and do that drop down, buddy.
The default is that one.
Please fill the drop down.
Okay.
There's the drop down. There's the three options. You've got your stop deployment with error. That is the default. When you create a new step, that's the default. Basically, if this fails, or more specifically, the return code is not listed as a success, we'll show you where that's specified, then stop this deployment with an error. But you can say continue, and there are a lot of times where you want to do that.
Yes.
If you have something that fails, but it has an error mode of continue, and then that package fails at a subsequent step, when you redeploy from the failed step, it's going to start from the failed stopped step. It's going to skip the continue. Hey, Lex, you got something there, bro?
I just think there's a great question that could be run right now,
Oh,
guys.
well, let's throw a question.
Dear Shane and Jordan, does it have to error to start from a certain step? I.e., will I be able to schedule a few computers to start at a certain step of a package and others the full package? Sincerely, Shucka Call.
Yes, you can. No, so the answer is no, and then yes. Because we were designing this start from a failed step, and then Adam had this idea of, you know what, we're already doing this, we should be able to just allow them to start from a specific step. And this will prevent you, like right now, some people might want to do that and they have to go disable the previous steps so that they're not run. Well, now you can actually start a schedule or a deployment saying, actually for this one I want you to start from this step. And then the next schedule, go ahead and just start it from step 1.
Yep.
Yes.
And if you have some computers want to start later than others, if you highlight them, just clicking on step for one of them and changing it will step for all of the selected computers.
Oh, thank you. That's the multi-select. Yeah. Do we want to show that continue, or do you think we've nailed that?
Since we went over the three, so a stop on error where it stops with success also, that just counts as success, so there's no way to continue from that.
Okay, so basically, it's got to stop. It's got to fail from a stop on error, which is the default. Or if you abort a deployment, and then you want to redeploy from a failed step, it's going to redeploy from the point where you aborted, the step that was being processed as you aborted. Now, aborting, there could be a time issue where that step actually technically succeeded, but didn't report up to us in the second and a half before we aborted. It will still start at that failed step. There's just wanted to let you know there's a little window of time in there before when a step completes and it actually makes it to our database.
Hey, Shane,
Yeah.
if I was like installing Office, that's a long install, and so let's say I kill it, I abort it mid-install, right? So is it going to basically roll back to the beginning of that install, and that's where it's going to take off from? Is that what I'm reading?
If you're doing a redeploy from failed step?
Yeah.
No, it'll redeploy from whatever step was failed. Which step did it fail on?
Okay, so I aborted it. So, let's say the install takes 60 minutes. Office is running.
Okay, which
it's
step?
installing. We'll say it's step 2 is the install step, and I kill that step mid-install. Is that where it's going to pick up and take off?
If you hit redeploy from failed step, if you just hit redeploy the failed computers, show that option.
Yes. The redeploy from failed.
This has been there for forever. Not so fast, man. Slow down. Eat your food. So you can hit redeploy or do the right click. You've got your redeploy only to the failed targets, or redeploy from failed step. So Lex, to answer your question, if you redeploy from the failed step, in your example, it will start from step 2. A problem that could happen is if step 1 perhaps copied a bunch of files that were necessary for step 2 to continue. If you redeploy from failed step, it would start at step 2 and may not have those files from step 1 because those were purged after the deployment failed. So there's thanks for calling that
little
out.
caveat there.
Yeah, little caveat. This is doing what you ask it to. But to answer Shakal's question, just select a deployment. Open up one of these deployments up here, like Adobe Flash for Firefox or something. Open that up. And let's just say, let's start from step 2, which is not going to install Flash at all.
So
let's just do that. I want to just to answer his question.
So you want to see it from
Deploy once, choose some targets. So this is how you start from any step. So we'll choose those computers, change that start deployment from step 1 to step 2. And say, okay, and this is the same when you're scheduling it. And then, so you mentioned schedules. I think it was Shakal. You mentioned schedules. The next schedule you start, you can just say start from step 1. But this is here's an example. Do we have one that shows a message?
Not that I know of off the top of my head.
Hurry and create one. Let's go to Adobe Flash or Firefox again.
Oh, you just want to create
Yeah, just do that one. Let's say that you've got create a step 1 that displays a message saying, hey, we are going to install this application or whatever. It's just a message. Move that up. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so step 1 runs a message. Now let's say that it's the middle of the night and you're confident that you're the only one in the office and you don't want to waste however long, maybe you've got that set for 3 minutes to display. You don't want that to display. This is a great time where you can say, you know what, just skip step 1. I don't need to display the message, but you don't want to disable it either because in the morning you might deploy it and you want that message. Mm-hmm. So this is just a one use case where that would be handy.
Okay.
So you want to go back to the continue or?
Yeah,
I'm hijacking you.
Yeah, no, from the fail options?
Sure.
Or did we? I think we pretty much covered these, though.
Okay.
There's one package that I built that this is the one thing that Colby was a big proponent of. I think 75% of the reason he applied here was to get this feature in the product.
Yes. How do we handle the redeploy from a failed step when you're talking about nested packages? So yeah, Colby, before he worked here, Colby was one of our customers, and he had kind of a baseline package that he would deploy to all new computers that installed all the applications or the latest version of applications that constituted the baseline of what he wanted. And sometimes it might fail halfway through, and he wanted to be able to deploy just the remaining steps, in this case, nested packages. He doesn't want to redeploy. So let's say in this example, if you can zoom in a little bit, JJ, I'm not sure if you can. Let's say it failed at like step 4 on Evernote, and he just wants to redeploy. He doesn't want to push 7-zip and Qt PDF and disable Java Update again. Those succeeded. This treats nested packages just as a step.
Okay, so Shane, let's say Evernote failed on step like 4. Where is it actually going to pick up and start? Is it going to do a full new install of Evernote, or where is it going to start?
Excellent question. It will start, if you say redeploy from failed step, from step 4 of the Evernote package. So it won't just say, oh, let's go back to the nested package of Evernote and read. No, it will start partway through that Evernote install, whatever step failed. So what are we doing here?
So I'm actually running. I have it set to fail at a certain point, so we can see what it looks like.
Okay.
When it is a nested package that fails.
Okay.
It's going to take a little bit though.
Did you have it fail at step 9? So we're just going to sit here.
It should be 2.2. So if it doesn't, then I'll cancel it. Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Throw the question out.
Dear Shane and Jordan, when you set a deployment for a collection, does PDQ Deploy automatically update the deployment when the new computers are added to the collection? Thanks, Jeremy O.
Okay, the answer is it can, as long as you set that up properly, Jeremy. So we're talking about, when you say you set a deployment, I'm going to assume you mean a schedule. Because with a schedule, you can choose what's called a link to. You show that. Let's. I want you to show what you don't want to do. So select a package there, brother.
Okay.
Any package. Pick a package.
All right.
All right, and then do a deploy. And choose schedule.
I'll choose
We're talking schedules, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we are.
So choose schedule. Now, if you choose the targets, go to the targets. If you hit choose targets, Jeremy, and go to PDQ Inventory, since he was talking about a collection. Notice when you do choose targets, you can specify a collection, but you're not deploying to that collection. You have to choose targets within that collection. This will not do what you want it to do, basically, when a new computer goes into that collection. Because when you do choose targets, you're actually choosing computers.
So you're basically making a static collection at that point.
Effectively, you're just saying these computers are in this collection. I'm selecting them, and these are the 10 computers you're going to deploy to every time. What you want to do is the link to. So you see here, you don't choose targets. You choose, like target computers, you choose target collections or target Active Directory OUs. So go ahead and choose a collection there, just any collection. So here we're looking for PowerShell. Anything that's in PowerShell, when this deployment kicks off, right when it kicks off, we will go out, by we I mean the schedule, will go out and say, what computers are in this collection right now? So new computers that were added will be part of subsequent deployments. That's if you use the link to. That's the important part. You cannot do link to when you are doing just a deploy once, because a deploy once, you just choose your targets. There's no reason to say link to. You can select all the targets in a collection. It's never going to run again. Only during schedule. So you're going to want to do a link to your collection and use the schedule, and then that will cover exactly what you want. Let's go back and take a peek at that deployment that you just had. Okay, so it failed on. Go ahead and click this. Failed on 2 of 10 steps. So notice it ran all of 7-zip and then failed on 2.2 of Qt PDF. So, yeah, send it out.
Sorry.
It's okay, brother. Go ahead and close that window and redeploy from failed step. Now it's going to redeploy. If you make this a little wider here, or highlight that, it'll do a hover over. Notice it's going to clear it again. Don't click it. There it is. It's going to run step 2 and pre-2. Pre-2 means this is a good segue. Pre-2 means that this is an auto download package, and there's a pre-step. So it's going to start from the pre-step 2 that failed. It's not going to run pre-step 1 of step 2. So go ahead and hit deploy now. Or did you need to change that?
So on this one where we know that one failed, but we know we don't need it, you could actually just go down to the next step if you wanted.
Okay.
And it will just pick up from there. Or if you fix the step, you could just hit deploy now, and it would run. I don't want to deploy that one because I don't think we need to install all that on Jerry. There's quite a bit.
And
there.
we may have found a bug there. Looks like you changed it to go to step 2, 1, when really it was step. I think you wanted step 3, 1.
No, it was step because it failed on pre-2, so step 1 to that one there. So it stepped on pre-2, and now it's just part of the regular step 2.
Gotcha. Sorry. All right, so you hit deploy, and you'll get around that, or you go fix your pre-step. The point here is it does not restart that nested package at the beginning. It restarts it wherever it failed. Mm-hmm. Do we have another question?
Dear Shane and Jordan, how will PDQ Inventory handle deployments that are cataloged within the computer record? Can you choose to create a deployment that will not be updated within the PDQ Inventory computer record? Thanks.
Hold on, keep that question up there. I'm not processing that. How will inventory handle deployments that are cataloged within the computer record? Can you choose to create a deployment that will not be updated within the PDQ inventory? The reason I'm a little confused is I'm not sure what you mean by computer record, because in this context there could be a few computer records. There's the actual computer table, and then there's the computer history.
Table.
The computer history, and then there's also the deployment history.
Deployment tab is what I thought it was here.
So yeah, there's 3 options here. So I'm not quite sure what he's talking about. May I drive for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for any of them, if you don't have it set to scan after the deployment, it won't update, but it will update the next time the scan happens. I don't think there's a way.
Okay, so what he's saying is in deploy preferences for this case, under deployments, you want to scan after deployment, make sure it's going to use an appropriate profile to capture what you're doing. In this case, we're using the applications profile. This won't update if your package modifies a service. You're going to want to, let's just say that, we'll keep that as the default for everything because it's a pretty good default. But let's say that, let's go to Dropbox. In Dropbox, we don't want to just scan for applications. We want to scan for everything. So you'd go to options, and instead of scan after the program default, you'd say, I want to scan like standard, and that will scan services if you want to grab those. If you're talking about in schedules, did he?
So you think the deployment table in the computer record. So yeah, that was the one we had.
Okay, so you're talking about the deployment table in the computer record. Okay, thank you. I was going to go to the computer history and just tell the deployment, don't stop deploying after it fails. Always deploy no matter what. But that's probably a bad call if you're installing it. So pull that question up again. Do you think we answered it?
Well, yeah. So I think the only way to stop it initially from updating is to not have it scan when the deployment's done. But I think once it scans again, if the deployments as part of the scan profile is used, it will pull it in no matter what.
Okay.
I guess if you didn't want the deployment record filled out, you could build a custom scan that doesn't,
you don't want that. No.
Doesn't include that, or.
Oh, okay. So no. Thank you. Now I think I understand. No, when you deploy and it scans, it's going to pop, if it sees a deployment, it's going to that computer in inventory. It's going to throw it in that table, regardless. We don't have a way of saying don't update that table. Now you can delete that if you want, but I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. I'm sure you have a use case, and I'd be interested to know that. Do we have another question?
Dear Shane and Jordan, would we ever see a conditional retry on failed steps, such as if it failed on an error code that usually resolves on reboot, then add a reboot step and retry? Sincerely, Jason A.
We don't have plans to, Jason. Right now we have the retry queue, and that only retries if the error message that's returned and there are several different types of error messages that can be returned that signify that the computer was offline. There's obviously, oddly, there's not just one. So there's a handful of error messages that we look for that, oh, this computer was not available during this deployment, and I'm using the retry queue, so it will retry only if it wasn't available. It will not retry or be put in the retry queue if it failed for a non-computer unavailable.
I think what he might be asking, Shane, is like I installed Office, and in the end of Office it requires a reboot. And if the conditional state is I'm done and now the computer is in I need a reboot state to reboot?
Well, he was saying it failed because it needed
okay,
to be
failed. Good point.
The way we do it is like we'll look at 3010, which is the MSI code, return code for successful, but it needs a reboot. If you marked something like that as a failure and then it failed, are there plans to say, oh, this failed because it needs a reboot, just run the reboot?
It's like adding a if-then statement to a deployment, and I haven't heard of.
Yeah, we
That brought
don't
up-
have plans.
I can see
for
a
that.
lot of bad things happening if you put that in. I can just imagine a couple of them right now.
In this case, if you see that there were some of your computers in your deployment, Jason, looking at your deployment history, show a deployment history of just a package you've deployed. If you look down here, go ahead and highlight that. If you see some computers here that obviously failed at that step with that reason, just select those and say deploy from this step, and deploy from a failed step, and then change that to, or even just redeploy to these and then change that to the last step, which reboots.
If he knew it was a reboot, he could add to the package a reboot step as that package step number, and then the deploy from that step would pick up.
But not if he has it stop on failure. And the previous one failed because the error code was not considered a success. So that's one way you can do it. But yeah, we don't have that. We don't have that scheduled. Do we have any other questions?
Well, the other thing added with this version is we did add all the same themes that were in the last version of inventory. The
Oh, okay,
theme,
yes.
I think the Office.
Go ahead and show. So you want to go to preferences. If you want to change your theme,
I hit Control, comma.
you hit Control comma, which is the keyboard shortcut. Otherwise, just go to Options, Preferences, and under Interface, there's your theme, and you can choose those. Those are the themes that we offer right now. I think most people are using the dark.
That seems to be the most.
But that was introduced in inventory recently, and
go
we
and
just
set it
added
to,
the same thing to deploy.
Office 2016. See what that looks like.
You want to actually try it here, huh?
We have 2 minutes left.
do it
Come on.
live.
You guys want to take one more question?
There's your theme.
Yep.
There's your Office 2016 theme. Yeah, sure. That's
You feeling love, JJ?
Change that back.
I am.
And our final question of the day comes from Jamie, Tyler, and all the gang. Any plans for a remote agent? We have numerous employees who work outside of the office VPN, and with all the new cloud solutions out there, it is increasingly becoming the norm. Thanks in advance, Jamie, Tyler, and the gang.
Yes. Thank you. And we are making actual progress on this. So the requirements phase is done. The first implementation, and this is always subject to change, but the first implementation, it is going to require inventory. So if you're just a deploy customer, this won't work if you don't have inventory. So the agent's going to be optional. Must say this, the agent will always be optional because we have so many customers that don't want an agent. But if you do want it, and there are some good benefits to having an agent. You will need to have inventory running in enterprise mode, and it will be introduced there first. And our plan is to allow inventory scans to remote computers, and then when those computers are on your network and the agent is running, then there's going to be triggers such as when a user logs on, a computer boots up or shuts down, the user logs on or logs off, or the agent starts or stops. Those will send event triggers that then we can act upon. But the cool thing about that is when a user boots up, I'm going to go over here to inventory. So our plan is I'm going to look at Allen Rails. Right now, if I look at the computer, go to this left panel and choose computer, I can look at the boot time. That boot time is collected right now based off of an inventory scan. So that data is only as good as the last successful scan. Once the agent is there, and if you have the agent configured properly, when the agent comes out, it will automatically update that when it boots up and say, hey, here's the new time, without a scan being necessary. Same with the current user. Someone logs on, that will get changed. They log off, that will get changed, all without having a scan required. All right, and at this point, that's planned for the next version of inventory. So that's inventory 16. Once again, subject to change, but the requirements are down. And then we're going to add features to that as each of these versions comes out. And then when deploy comes out, there's going to be some features there as well. The first of deploy at this point, once again, subject to change, the deployments will be able to come from the package library only. We will ascertain additional features as time goes on. But the answer to your question is yes. I think that was Jamie. Yes, we are. That is in the works. We are planning on that, and it will require inventory. All right. Hey, thank you very much, man.
Thanks. It's nice to know I was so good at the curling updates. They made me an anchor.
It's more out of pity.
I thought you were a skip.
For those of you who don't watch the pre-show, Jordan's a curler. Yeah, and we still hired him. Anyway, I'm Shane.
I'm Jordan.
We'll talk to you guys next week. Jeremy Moskowitz is going to be in the studio and ask me anything about group policy. So check it out. Jeremy Moskowitz in the house next Thursday. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, Jeremy O. and Paul J., winners of PDQ Swag. Get us your info at webcast@pdq.com. And as Shane mentioned, join us next week. We have Microsoft Group Policy MVP Jeremy Moskowitz. He'll be here to answer all your group policy questions. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next week.